Hey, Matt here. So in this video, I'm going to explain how I go about finding my leaks. I would say the main reason why I wanted to get coaching over the past couple of years was to help find my leaks. I was fairly confident if I knew what my leaks are, then I would plug them, but I just didn't know what they were. I would mark hands while playing and then run those in Pio and try and build my intuition and try and get closer and closer, but I think that's pretty inefficient. I know a lot of people say that's a bad way to study. I don't really agree, but I do agree that it is inefficient and there probably is a better way. Now, I've had a few database / leak finder coachings over the past couple of years, and I would say most people approach it the same way. They'll load out my database and they'll go over a lot of the basic stats and they'll say, I think you're probably overfolding a little bit here. Maybe you're being a little bit too passive in these places, but they wouldn't really give me any concrete numbers to shoot for. They would just say, you're probably overfolding here. You need to bet a little bit more there. So I needed to come up with a solution. So what I decided to do was I decided to build my own Hand2Note profile. I would say it's probably one of the most comprehensive Hand2Note profiles. I think I went a little bit above and beyond, especially because it's hard to get a lot of sample in some of the notes. But I really wanted to create something that basically that would eliminate me having to get coaching to find my leak. So now when I get coaching, what I'm trying to get out of it is, hey, I know I have this leak. How can I improve it? I'm doing some things to try and get the number up, but it's not really working. So what are your heuristics there? So I kind of eliminated that whole leak finder aspect of it. Before I go into my database, I'll just give you a quick overview of the Hand2Note profile. So the first thing I have here is just some general stats. It's pretty interesting. I would say there's no real GTO numbers for this. You can only compare your stats to other regs who are winning. But I think it's a good general overview. It's good to check these. Then I have flop. Now, this is just a summary. So this is all the lines, and it could be any action. It's better to give you an example on the river. So this is any action on the flop, any action on the turn, and how much you bet, how much you check, how much you raise, etc. This is, again, there's no real GTO stats for this, obviously, but it's interesting to compare them to other regs. Then I have positional win rate. So then I have pre-flop. Again, this is just basic stuff. Basic positional stats. This is unique, I think. So I have big blind stats, and this is versus different open sizes. So these numbers that I had filled in, this is actually wrong because this should be in the 3x. This is just my simple pre-flop simulation, the stats that I had, and then what happens is I can compare them. Ideally, I would love to have it for every open size, but I just don't have sims for that. But I can get an idea and compare it to other reg stats as well. Then I have the same thing for a small blind. Then we get to the fun part, post-flop. So I went way above and beyond. So, for example here, this is if you're a PFR, imposition, and single raise pop. This is how much you'd bet on the flop. These are the sizings that you'd bet. So this would be your overall frequency, and then this would be broken down in sizes. I'll show you an example of that later. How much you raise, etc. Turn. Now this is where I start to filter by size because, for example, turn. If you bet small and then you fold till a donk, it's going to be different whether you bet big or you bet small. This number is going to be different. So I think it's important to filter by different flop and turn sizes. Obviously, by the river, it's going to make your game tree huge, but it's just kind of what you have to do, unfortunately. Now, this is river. This is river bets. I'll have river bets, calls, folds, and even river raises. So I pretty much have most lines, or at least the relevant ones, in single raise pots, 3-bet pots, and 4-bet pots. So this is all great, but how do you know what your stats should be? Well, what I did was I ran a script, and then I ran a report in Pio, and basically I come up with the frequencies, and then I compare the solver frequencies to my frequencies and see where my leaks are. So let's do a real example of this right now. So this sample, I think, I didn't upload my most recent month yet, as it's only the 20th of December. I usually look at around 100k hands. It's tough with 100k hands, though, because you won't get a lot of river spots. I think it will give you a good flop and turn idea. So let's take a look here. So for example, one of my leaks that I've always had, this is big blind versus button. On the turn we'll go is delay c betting. So as you can see here, the delay c bet should be about 38, where mine is 26. Now if we hover over here, it'll actually filter by size. And as you can see, I don't really delay c bet for a small size that often. But if we look here, it does make up 13% of this delay c bet range. So it makes sense why mine's small because I'm not using the small size, but it's definitely something I should work on. I think this delay c bet works really well versus population as well. So if you are thinking of it from even an exploitative point of view, I should definitely crank this up. Next thing is the bet small bet. What's actually interesting is I'm betting 54% of the time on the turn. Could be some sample things because it's only 127 opportunities, but that is kind of interesting. So I am potentially over c-betting turn. Interesting. I would not have thought that. Then the last thing we can look at is, sorry, the folds. I don't have it right now because this was just the screenshot, but I was going to compare the folds because folds I can also break it out by size when you hover over. So as you can see here, versus small size, I'm folding 33, medium about 50, and so on and so forth. Now let's look at as the caller out of position. Whoops, I accidentally closed that. So this is the big blind side. So we can look at a couple things. Turn probes. So it should be roughly about 32. As you can see, mine's 24, and we can hover over again to see the sizes. Again, I'm not using so much of the small sizes, which I know is a thing. I mean, obviously, it's about 10% of the turn probing range. So I'm definitely missing some there. So basically, what can we take from this? Well, there's two potential leaks that I could be working on is turn probes and delay c-betting, and these are two nodes that are going to happen fairly often. We can actually even just look at my fold to c-bets as well. So this is what I think is interesting because oftentimes when coaches do database reviews, they'll just look at your overall bet, your overall check raise, your overall check fold, but they don't filter it by sizings, and I think that matters a lot. So let's take a look here. Check fold to small should be 34, so if we go here, check fold to small, I am overfolding slightly to these small bets, as you can see. And it's interesting. So what you could do is you could hover over this, and you could hover over this, and you could actually see which hands I'm folding. So some of these are low pairs, which usually you can't fold low pairs to one bet. So for example here, especially versus to 33, this one's maybe close. This one also close, but I think this one for sure I should be calling. So it's interesting that I can actually go in and specifically see where I'm overfolding in order to improve. To the medium size is 45, so it's about, I use in the sim like 75, so to the medium size is actually not bad, and to the big size I obviously don't have much sample because nobody really uses it. As you can see, I've only actually seen it in 100k hands less than 10 times. And then check raise small. As you can see here, it's supposed to be 16. Check raise small for me is 15, so it's not terrible. But I bet you what I could do is I could up my check raise, which then would lower my check fold, most likely, as well, as calls, or, it'll kind of change the ratio, so I could be maybe looking to check raise more. Check raise is the medium is 9, so I'm under check raising versus the big size. So again, we found a couple leaks here. Okay, let's look at specifically when I'm facing a medium size c-bet, what kind of hands should I be check raising? What am I missing? And, go from there. In that short couple minute video, we found 3-4 stats that I could improve upon. Now, obviously, there's some sample issues mixed in there, and some people might say these stats depend on the parameters of your sim, or what if population does X, then that stat should be different. I get it, but it's what I personally believe is the best way to find your leaks. Now, what I want to do in the future is actually see what lines happen the most and generate the most EV. Imagine if you could do that, and then you know exactly which spots you should focus on first. I think that's going to be amazing. It'll take a lot of time, but that's definitely something I want to do. Anyways, I just wanted to make this video to show you how I find my leaks, and one day when I play higher and I'm confident enough to get into coaching, I feel like this will be an amazing tool to help people improve a lot quicker than I did. Now, until next time, good luck at the tables.